Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
More rain is in the forecast in the coming days, but many people are still dealing with the aftermath of the last storm. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A local assistance center open to provide a one-stop shop for those affected by the recent flood and is helping San Diegans get back on their feet. KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us about the center and how you can also help flood victims.
This time last week, thousands of San Diegans were dealing with the aftermath of the flooding, including Spring Valley resident Marianne Ramsey.
And it's only been a week, but it feels like a month. So it's very overwhelming.
Ramsey's home and rental property were damaged by flooding.
No one can live in either house right now.
The County of San Diego's Local Assistance Center at the Spring Valley Library has resources for people impacted by the storms.
It's kind of the physical manifestation of all the programs that can be available for somebody to come and get help with.
County of San Diego's spokesperson Chuck Westerhide says since opening on Sunday, more than 750 families have come to the center for help.
And they don't realize until they see a program what they need. They just aren't aware, like, you know, they've lost everything. They know they need food. They might need some basic clothing. And then they realize, no, I shouldn't be paying property tax on a property that is so damaged I can't live in it anymore.
From help replacing prescriptions and driver's licenses to temporary housing and pet supplies. The county clerk is even on site to help replace important documents.
When they walk in, they may not know what they need. And when they walk out, they either know what they still need to do or they've taken care of a lot of that stuff here.
Ramsey says she got a lot of helpful information at the center and even linked up with Team Rubicon, a relief organization that helps those affected by disasters.
The volunteers that will come and help take debris off your property, they were spray for mold. That was the best one to me, that information. And they're volunteers, and it's free.
The center is open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Wednesday. In preparation for the upcoming rain on Thursday, both the city and county are providing sandbags at numerous locations, including community centers and fire stations. CAL FIRE says the San Miguel Fire District Station 16, just a mile away from the Assistance Center, has distributed about 30,000 bags in the last 4 days. County Chairwoman Nora Vargas is encouraging volunteers who want to help flood victims to participate in a day of service on Wednesday. And donations are being accepted from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 4 locations: the Jackie Robinson Family YMCA, the Sherman Heights Community Center, the National City Family Resource Center, and the Spring Valley Library. They're asking for new and unused bedding, cleaning materials, clothing, equipment, water and non-perishable food and nutrition, and other household items. A link to a complete list is on our website. Melissa May, KPBS News.
We have more information about tomorrow's Day of Service events at kpbs.org/weather. You can find that, as well as more storm-related coverage and resources. The rain damage cleanup continues at a couple of the San Diego Community College's campuses. KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us school officials are working overtime to have classrooms ready for the start of the spring semester.
The floodwater flowed deep into the lowest level parking lot here at the San Diego Continuing Education Cesar Chavez campus in Barrio Logan. And just a week after the torrential downpour, there is damage still to deal with. Pumps are desperately draining water on the first floor and below. Look at this. One of only 2 elevators in the building, both full of rainwater.
I was not expecting this at all, and to be honest, I don't think anyone was.
Tina King is president of the community college's continuing education campuses. She leads her team in the recovery effort that includes industrial dehumidifiers and fans. The heavily used multi-purpose room is now covered in plastic, with hopes the bamboo flooring can be saved in time for students returning this week for the spring semester.
They know that we're here to support them, and this goes outside of supporting them and their educational needs. We also are here to support them as the whole student.
Isabella Andrejczyk is one of those students who is also working in the registration office this week after surviving the sudden flood last week.
It was like really surprising for us that even the school was closed because we couldn't enter the school for safety reasons.
Cleanup at the district's educational cultural complex in Mountain View is also moving ahead. Water damage was especially heavy in the main lobby, as you can see in these pictures provided by the district. Students are already able to access this campus.
It was surprising, but what surprised me the most is that the community there is trying to help each other and they're all cleaning up and all that.
Besides dealing with damage on campus, students and staff also had to deal with devastation in their homes and neighborhoods, where infrastructure continues to be a problem across the county.
We're talking about the drainages being cleaned out consistently so that the backage that we've seen would not have happened. And so there are lots of conversations with city officials, other individuals on how did this happen, but not only how did this happen, how do we learn from this so this does not happen again.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
Another quiet night coming up. There will be a few clouds around. Not going to be all that cool in the relatively comfortable zone as we fall back close to 50 degrees. But we do have some big changes coming up not too far down the road, as we'll be talking about wet weather, windy weather, and even some wintry weather over the higher terrain. All those details are coming up in just a bit.
Extra security was on hand today at Rancho Bernardo High School after a student was arrested for allegedly making threats against the school. Early this morning, San Diego police detectives serving a search warrant removed stockpiles of weapons from the teen's home, including ghost guns, bomb and gun-making materials, bulletproof vests, and a rocket launcher. The teen's father was also arrested on weapons charges. The Poway Unified School District's Chief Communications Officer says school officials were tipped off by students.
The students saw some videos, they heard some statements that were really concerning, and then I think by what was found in the search warrant, those fears were valid. The fact that our students and staff were able to come to school today and learn and teach safely and feel safe, that's huge.
And the school says counselors and San Diego police officers will be there all week to continue their investigation, as well as to assure students and parents of their safety. The father is set to be arraigned on February 1st. House Republicans are moving forward with plans to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. They accuse him of high crimes and misdemeanors for his handling of the southern border crisis. As Julia Benbrook reports, this comes as Republicans face pressure to hold the Biden administration accountable on a key campaign issue.
The border battle continues on Capitol Hill. Tuesday, Republicans in the House of Representatives took the next step toward impeaching the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Today, we present this committee with the articles of impeachment against Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
GOP lawmakers on the Homeland Security Committee claim Mayorkas has committed high crimes and misdemeanors for his handling of the southern border. But a number of constitutional experts say the evidence does not reach that high bar.
We cannot allow fentanyl to flood across our border or criminals to waltz in undeterred. And we cannot allow a cabinet secretary with no regard for the separation of powers or the rule of law to remain in office.
Mayorkas has pushed back against the criticism, and DHS has slammed the inquiry. House Democrats are calling the move toward impeachment a political stunt.
We don't see the high crimes and misdemeanors standard being met.
House Republicans have clearly turned their ever-shrinking majority over to the extremists. And this sham impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas is just another sad example.
House Republican leadership has promised to bring articles of impeachment to the floor quickly. Mayorkas would be the first cabinet secretary to be impeached in nearly 150 years. Meanwhile, a group of senators is working to address border security with a bipartisan bill. But after former President Donald Trump started speaking out against an immigration compromise, GOP House Speaker Mike Johnson said that the bill would be, quote, dead on arrival in his chamber. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Earlier this month, the Navy selected a local developer to redevelop the 70-plus acre Naval site near the San Diego International Airport. A new study released today highlights the economic impact that Naval has on the region. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen breaks it down for us.
Inside these buildings by Interstate 5, next to San Diego International Airport in Old Town, the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, or NAVWAR, employs more than 5,300 people. A new report sponsored by the San Diego Military Advisory Council, or SDMAC, and conducted by USD Canal's School of Business says that workforce brings $910 million to the local economy. John Pope is NAVWAR's executive director.
So what's important in that report is just to show that, our presence, partnering with industry, partnering with academia, partnering with the city, it really helps us do our mission.
And that mission is to keep critical naval communication system operational under any condition.
I think one of the biggest significant impacts of NAVWAR is the contribution it makes to the resilience of our economy.
Jeremy Gabe is with the Bernard Moore Center for Real Estate at USD. He helped with NAVWAR's economic impact modeling. He says NAVWAR was responsible for more than $3 billion of economic activity in San Diego in fiscal year 2020.
And we know that their contribution has grown since previous reports, and it's been remarkably consistent through a pandemic, like one of the big economic disruptions of the time, again, showcasing that resilience.
Gabe says that resilience helps San Diego weather the economic boom and bust cycle, or when the economy grows or shrinks. The report comes at a time when the Navy is looking to redevelop the more than 70-acre Old Town campus, where NAVWAR is located. Even though the NAVWAR site is being redeveloped, NAVWAR is staying in San Diego and contributing to the economy. That's important because it also attracts high-paying jobs to the area. State Karras is the executive director of the Bernard Moore Center at USD. He says NAVWAR is one of the top 20 employers in San Diego.
When you look at reports like this, you look at what NAVWAR does directly and who they employ, but they also provide about $1.7 billion in contract work to companies that, by and large, are here in San Diego or have offices here in San Diego.
We wanted to know, did the money that NAVWAR's contractors who are located here, did that money stay within the region? And there was quite a significant chunk of it that did.
Pope says that also means attracting and keeping skilled workers in San Diego. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, a Qatari government spokesperson on his country's role in mediating ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Images of Taylor Swift shook up social media over the weekend, forcing X to temporarily restrict some searches for several hours. Laura Geary explains why that is and how some House lawmakers hope it will re-energize their push for broader regulations regarding AI.
Millions of people's jobs. From the president to pop stars to Americans going about their everyday lives, anyone can be targeted by the misuse of artificial intelligence. Over the weekend, X, formerly Twitter, temporarily displayed an error message on searches for some Taylor Swift images after the music icon became the victim of sexually explicit pictures created by AI that have since been taken down.
What happened, fortunately, Ms. Swift, is happening to thousands of women across this country each and every day.
Several House Democrats are hopeful Swift's case will re-energize a stalled bill that's focused on regulating the use of AI.
These deepfakes are dangerous.
The proposed Do Not Disturb Act overhauls federal rules regarding robocalls, like the one that falsely portrayed President Joe Biden sent to voters during the New Hampshire primary this month.
It's important that you save your vote for the November election. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again.
A CNN review of the bill's summary finds that it expands the definition of a robocall to include any call or text that uses AI or a pre-recorded message. Violators who use AI to impersonate someone in a robocall could face higher fines. And even authorized robocalls would have to disclose any use of artificial technology.
It's going to take the Congress, it's going to take our law enforcement agencies, and it is going to take the private sector to build these safeguards, but then to make sure that they're enforced and that we protect people.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
Colleges are getting financial aid data from students late this year. The Department of Education told colleges not to expect data until the first half of March. That's around the time students usually hear a decision on their aid. You may remember that we reported last week a pair of updates to the federal student aid application process led to a delay. The Education Department revamped the process last year. It had to be updated again earlier this month to include inflation data. Most schools still require students to commit to them by May 1st. A landslide on the tracks in San Clemente is still impacting trains coming in and out of North San Diego County nearly a week later. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says the incoming storms may further delay efforts to reopen them.
Wednesday's landslide brought trains to a halt and damaged the Mariposa Trail Bridge in San Clemente. Despite ongoing efforts to clear the boulders and debris, passenger rail service is still closed between San Juan Capistrano and Oceanside.
Unfortunately, hillside movement continues to be observable.
Scott Johnson is the director of communications with Metrolink. He says Metrolink passengers traveling between San Diego and Orange County should make alternate travel arrangements until service can be restored. Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service is also affected by the railroad track closure. They're offering bus bridges between Irvine and Oceanside to get passengers around the closure.
At this moment, passenger rail service still is not available, even though at night freight train movement is occurring, largely because in the evening time, all of that construction equipment is not along the right-of-way.
Orange County Transportation Authority owns the tracks. They say they're working with Metrolink to safely restore passenger rail service as quickly as possible. OCTA's news release also says, over the past 3 years, San Clemente's eroding bluffs on both city and private property have repeatedly forced the closure of the rail line, which has operated largely uninterrupted for more than 125 years. Meteorologists say the storms expected later this week could be powerful enough to cause more flooding. Johnson says that could further impact reopening plans, but they're preparing.
So the project team is certainly aware of the impending rains. As a part of the grading and excavating of dirt along the hillside, tarping is taking place as well to protect the work that's already been accomplished.
Johnson says there's still no clear timeline when passenger rail service will resume. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Well, after all the wet weather we had last week, especially on Monday, looks like the end of our most recent dry stretch is coming to an end soon. Whereas as we work our way into Thursday, we're going to see another round of heavy rain. Along with that, some wind and even some snow into the higher terrain. Let's talk about the short term here first, and we'll take you through the overnight. You can see the wet weather for now staying mainly north of San Francisco. And even as we work our way through Wednesday, that precipitation not even making its way down toward Los Angeles. So we still have some time here before we start to see those conditions changing up. For tonight, we dropped down to 49 in Chula Vista, 43 in Ramona, and 46 in Borrego Springs. Now, there's the southern extent of the wet weather as we work our way into Wednesday. It's that Thursday time frame, and we're going to start to see some big changes in our area. So enjoy the sunshine while it's here. Still up into the 70s around Ramona, Borrego Springs. Chula Vista tops off at 65, Oceanside at 67. Then we work our way into Thursday. So Wednesday, primarily Interstate 80 on north. And then Thursday, we're going to see the wet weather come through our area, especially throughout the morning time frame. And this is when we can see, again, some of those higher rainfall rates. How much rain are we talking about? Well, we could see an inch or two locally higher amounts of rain. And thinking about rain so far this month, we've seen 3.65 inches. That's nearly double the historical average. So the ground is saturated, and looking at another inch or two of rain, we can see some runoff concerns here. Along with the wind, we could see some of those winds gusting out of the coast beyond 40 miles per hour. Some of that lingering wet weather on Friday, and then another system comes in Sunday into Monday. Wind and heavy rain throughout the interior valleys as we go into Thursday. A brief break on Saturday. Talking about the snow levels starting around 7,500 feet on Thursday. By Friday morning, we could even see some snow toward Julian, definitely toward Mount Laguna, so some tricky travel here, and then some sunshine, but the wind will be a factor as we go toward the deserts. Also looking at some wet weather as we head our way into Thursday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
And here's another look at today's top stories. While San Diegans are bracing for more rain in the coming days, the county is helping those still reeling from last week's storm. The Spring Valley Library is serving as a one-stop shop for flood victims. Services include temporary housing, replacing prescriptions and important documents, and providing pet supplies. The center will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow. The city and county are also providing sandbags at numerous community centers and fire stations. And San Diego Community College district officials are working overtime to get classrooms ready for the start of the spring semester. Floodwater flowed into the lowest level parking lot at the San Diego Continuing Education Cesar Chavez campus in Barrio Logan. The Educational Cultural Complex in Mountain View also sustained heavy water damage. Classes are scheduled to begin tomorrow. For the first time, California law is set to protect elementary school students' right to recess. KPBS reporter Corey Suzuki says these changes come at a critical time for young Californians.
Do you want to sit here and listen to the interview? We're talking about playing with you. Do you want us to just here watch?
That's Ana Cordova. She's talking with her son, Nolan, who does not want her to be talking with someone else right now. He munches on a snack grumpily while we talk. Nolan is almost 4. He was born in April 2020, right after the pandemic began. Cordova says it was an isolating way to grow up. All of their family is back in Chicago, so they weren't really seeing anybody else. Nolan is in preschool now. Next year, he'll be moving to transitional kindergarten. And the move hasn't been easy. Especially recess.
The teachers tell us, it takes them some time to warm up. Sometimes he's kind of on the outskirts observing, which makes...
And I cry.
Yes, you cry too.
But Cordova is hopeful. It's been getting easier for Nolan to spend more time with other kids. And recess, she says, is going to be a really important part of that. Researchers who study childhood largely agree. Recess is really important. For a lot of kids, it's their main time to play freely and without structure. Rebecca London is a professor of sociology at UC Santa Cruz.
Forming connections with peers and adults is healing for children. And that's exactly what happens during recess, right? It's not just about the play. It's about the interaction that happens through the play.
Those interactions through play are crucial. They help kids develop social skills and creativity and reduce the risk of anxiety and depression. But for decades, recess has also been under threat. London says that dates back to around the late 90s and early 2000s, when the federal government made a big push to sharpen public schools' focus on academic performance, with the No Child Left Behind Act.
So in return for federal dollars, we're asking states to design accountability systems.
Educators were suddenly under huge pressure. They responded by ramping up the focus on academics, sending students home with more work, and extending the school year. Recess also became an easy target.
So recess, which had been sort of a staple in the day, became cut shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and in some places disappeared altogether.
At least a fifth of U.S. school districts cut back on recess time, by as much as an hour every week, according to some estimates. Researchers tracked those changes in poorer schools in California, and also saw educators take away more recess from Black and Latino students than they did from white students. That could have continued, but then came the pandemic.
Kids not only didn't get the same level of education or mentorship or instruction, but they were really isolated.
Josh Newman is a California state senator and the parent of a second grader, and he saw how those changes affected kids firsthand.
It shed light on the impact on students of the isolation that came from closing schools and this kind of overhang of a whole bunch of mental health and kind of other issues that we're going to have to work our way through.
For Newman, that was the turning point. Last year, he spearheaded the passage of a new law, SB 291. It requires all public schools to give elementary school students 30 minutes of recess every day, separate from lunch and PE. And it makes it illegal for teachers to take that time away as punishment. Here in San Diego, schools are still figuring out what those changes will mean for the next school year. KPBS reached out to 4 local districts, but none of them would give interviews on how they plan to make sure that schools are following the law. Still, London says this is huge for California.
The pandemic, I think, is leading people to realize how important this social connection is. And, since the pandemic started, we've seen, maybe 4, 5, 6 new states pass legislation.
One day you're going to do that, buddy.
Ana Cordova is optimistic. She agrees that the law is a good thing.
Like, they're just kids, so they have all their lives to not have recess.
The new recess law is set to take effect in the fall. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition talks to the Chief of Forecast Operations at the National Weather Service about the higher stakes of weather predictions in an era of climate change. And KPBS Midday Edition is talking to a San Diego chef who was selected as a semifinalist for Best Chef in California. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.